Welcome. I think we're going to start off this morning. Maybe we should introduce ourselves before turn it over to Michael to run through our charges that the bill has laid out for us. And I'll start off. Bobby Starr. I'm senator from Essex, Orleans County.
I'm Dan Smith, attorney in Montpelier, Vermont, and I apologize to everybody for my tardiness this morning.
Jackie Folsom, retired dairy farmer from Cabot, Vermont, and legislative director for Vermont Farm Bureau.
And I'm Randy Brock, senator from Franklin County and part of Grand Isle County.
Michael.
I'm Mike Marcotte, a state representative from Coventry, and I chair House Commerce and Economic Development.
John.
Hi there, John O'Brien. I represent Royalton in my hometown of Tunbridge, and I serve on the House Committee on Agriculture and Forestry.
Matt.
Yeah, hi everybody. Nick Richardson, President and CEO of the Vermont Land Trust. Really good to be with everyone as I travel back from Massachusetts this morning. And
we have our staff person, Linda Lehman, with us. We have a guest, Gil Livingston as a guest. And Andrea, would you like to introduce yourself again?
Sure, I'm Andrea Papiti, and I am a hearing officer for the Public Utility Commission, and I focus on a lot of rate cases, and I'm looking forward to serving on the committee on an ad hoc basis. Thanks for having me.
And yes, thank you. So Michael O'Grady, who's our legal counsel and staff person from the Legislative Council. Michael's going to give us an overview of our task force and because we have to reorganize today because this is a new setting, a new meeting. Somehow during the legislation that we extended it, it was set up like a new committee. So go ahead, Michael.
Good morning. This is Michael O'Grady with the Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm going to go through the two acts that authorize the commission and provided its charge. And then I'm going to run through the recommendations of the task force from its interim report and give you a status on any legislation that was enacted in order to address those recommendations. So right now I'm going to share my screen and put on the screen a document that has the task force charges and the recommendations. Hold on one second.
Mike, while you're doing that, Linda has informed us that your document is also available online.
Yep, I asked the chair if he wanted me to share, and he said he did. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So in 2020, in Act 129, Section 31, there was a requirement that DFR provide a report regarding milk pricing in the state. And so that section starts out with the findings, which addresses the current price farmers receive under the federal milk market order, how that price often does not cover the costs of production, and how such costs have put pressure on farmers in Vermont and led to 60% of Vermont farms closing since 2000. There is then basically a conclusion that before Vermont loses another substantial portion of its remaining dairy farming community, the state agency with expertise in financial regulation, DFR, should assess data on the long-term sustainability and fairness to the Vermont dairy farming community of federal milk market order pricing, current market conditions, and the dairy cooperative operation. So DFR did do its report. They issued that report to you in January of 2021. And that report included recommendations. It was supposed to include recommendations for revising the regulated dairy pricing in Vermont and other market regulations in the state. DFR did conclude that the federal milk market order does not ensure adequate returns for Vermont dairy farms, and the report analyzed potential alternatives to address the inequity of the federal milk market order, including risk management programs, a state market order, and supply management. But ultimately, DFR did not consider itself to be in a position to make recommendations for policy to pursue. So they analyzed alternatives, but they did not provide a recommendation. So the report then triggered the task force. So after receipt of the report, the Committee on Committees was to appoint the task force to develop legislation to implement the recommendations of the Commissioner of Financial Regulation. Because DFR did not provide any recommendations, effectively, the task force's charge is basically what the recommendations of the DFR report were supposed to address. So your charge is to evaluate and revise regulated dairy pricing and other market regulation in the state to improve the future viability of Vermont dairy farming. As the chair or Senator Starr noted, the task force originally was scheduled to cease to exist on March 1st, 2022. It did cease to exist, but in 2022 Acts and Resolves number 162, the task force was authorized again to exist and retain the authority granted to it. The membership is similar, but not the same as the original task force. The House Committee on Appropriations was aware that Joe Bradley had resigned during the original tenure of the task force, and therefore House Appropriation thought that one less member was needed. And so you have the 2 members of the House, 2 members of the Senate, and 4 non-legislators with experience or knowledge in the Vermont dairy industry. One thing that you do not have right now is you do not have chairs, because the task force ceased to exist in March. And this is reauthorizing the task force. You should, or I recommend that you elect chairs for the commission. I don't know if you want to do that now or if you want to wait till later.
Doesn't matter. Jackie?
I'd like to nominate Senator Starr and Mr. Smith as co-chairs of the Dairy Task Force.
So I don't know, I guess you run that part of it, Michael.
Yep. And so is there a second for that nomination? Then you would all vote. I think you could do a voice vote. Actually, because it's a hybrid meeting, the people that are online have to vote by roll call. So you have to do this by roll call. I'm sorry, I forgot the hybrid voting requirement. So I'm gonna call the roll. I'm gonna start with Senator Starr.
Yes.
Dan Smith.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
Yes.
Representative Marcotte.
Yes.
Representative O'Brien.
Yes.
Jackie Folsom.
Yes.
Nick Richardson.
Yes.
And I believe that's everyone. And you have elected Senator Starr and Dan Smith as co-chairs of the task force. So moving on from the charge of the task force, actually, let me reference that you are authorized to meet for up to 10 meetings. and the task force would cease to exist again in February of 2023. Then you get to the recommendations of the task force from the report that you issued last year. There were broad categories of recommendations, the first of which was regarding risk management, which was basically tracking the DFR report on risk management options. One of those options was for the state to pay farmer premiums for participation in the USDA risk management programs. The task force recommended the use of federal funds from ARPA to achieve that state payment of premiums. In 2022, Action Resolves number 83 did require the Secretary of Agriculture to establish a dairy risk management assistance program for the purpose of assisting milk producers to participate in the federal dairy margin coverage program. And there was $2.6 million of ARPA funds appropriated for that purpose. And I believe Diane's going to talk to you a little bit about participation of farmers in the program. There was also a recommendation for increased farmer participation in risk management with the state paying the premiums. It should likely lead to additional participation by farmers. And then the question is, if you will continue to fund farmer premiums, that would likely increase long-term participation of farmers in DMC or other similar programs. You also recommend that the federal farm bill, reauthorize the risk management programs. From my understanding, there will be risk management programs in the federal farm bill. The specific details for those, I do not know yet. Diane might have a better idea, but there should be risk management programs in the 2023 Farm Bill. The next category of recommendations is probably the biggest category that's left for the task force to address, and you recognize this in your report's recommendation. This is the price stabilization and enhancement. Broadly, you looked at about 4 or 5 price stabilization options, but you identified that you needed some additional information for some of them. So this is probably actually a good time to work on price stabilization, because the current price that farmers are receiving under the federal milk market order is fairly high. So there isn't a cost pressure right now on farms, and there isn't that kind of emergency need, exigent need to address price. So you will have time to do the work that you recommended for yourself to do. And specifically what you recommended for yourself to do is under subdivision 3 here and subdivision 4, that you reviewed milk market order pricing programs in other states and how they might potentially work in Vermont. You recognize that the Vermont Milk Commission already has authority to issue an in-state pricing order. However, because the market channel for Vermont raw milk has changed substantially, there are legal questions about how Vermont milk market order should be constructed. Consequently, you recommended that the General Assembly, through the task force, obtain an academic legal opinion to address legal questions regarding a Vermont milk market order for raw milk purchased in the state. The task force has obtained that legal opinion from Professor Brandon Denning, a noted constitutional commerce clause expert, and he is going to present that legal opinion to you at a future task force meeting. Similarly, in subdivision 4, the task force reviewed the main program that pays farmer subsidies from the general fund, and the payments are supported by a handling fee on raw milk produced in the state. Vermont could implement a similar program but the task force recommended additional legal opinion regarding implementation of a subsidy program. Again, you've obtained that legal opinion from Professor Denning, and he will be presenting that legal opinion to you at a future task force meeting. You also looked at a fee on retail sale of packaged milk products. I believe this was specifically a Senator Brock proposal that the task force supported. There still needs to be testimony taken to determine if that 5 to 10 cent fee on packaged fluid milk would be sufficient to promote the Vermont dairy industry and its products. Then the next broad category of recommendations regarded infrastructure support. As you all know, over the next several years, Vermont's going to receive an unprecedented amount of federal funds to support the economy and develop infrastructure. That provides a generational opportunity to invigorate the state economy, including the dairy economy. And so the first thing you recommended was expanding assistance and infrastructure programs that are available to dairy farmers where they can be expanded to provide this short-term assistance from available federal funds. And you did that in the Appropriations Act of 2022. You appropriated approximately $2.5 million from ARPA to the Agency of Agriculture for water quality grants, which may include infrastructure improvements. In addition, in Act number 162, you amended the criteria for awards of assistance under the Capital Equipment Assistance Program and the Farm Agronomic Practices Program to give the agency additional flexibility in awarding grants for activities that meet the purposes of each program. So you have expanded some of the eligibilities for some of the water quality financing program. In addition, you had recommended basically appropriating money for grant writers or an ombuds person to help farmers navigate the grant applications and other funding assistance applications. There was an appropriation in the Appropriations Act that authorized 2 new water quality program coordinator positions at the agencies. The positions were funded with ARPA funds, and the agency intends for one position to assist farms with the paperwork and follow-up required under ARPA. The second position will assist with paperwork, but will also spend some time in the field working with farmers to complete paperwork and do some technical assistance on implementing water quality activities. So you did get some grant writers or some grant application assistance out to the farms, again, specifically with regard to water quality programs. The next category of recommendations related to transportation. One of the recommendations was to somehow shift or explore alternatives to shift the cost of hauling from dairy farmers to other sources. No legislative action was taken on that in the last session. There was also a recommendation to conform weight limits on Vermont highways with neighboring states in order to facilitate regional dairy hauling. There was some movement on this in the jurisdictional committees of the General Assembly, and it probably would have gone through, except that there was some end of session kind of political maneuvering that basically killed the bill. So language on registration of milk hauling was agreed to, but it ultimately was not enacted. I think you'll likely see more action on this year or this coming session. So you should see some change to the highway weights for dairy hauling in the next session. The next category was labor. The task force received testimony from multiple witnesses regarding the current labor shortage and how it is negatively affecting farm and dairy processing production. One of the things you wanted to look at was increasing the assistance the state pays to commercial drivers license programs. They do have a assistance program funded through the Department of Labor. I don't think there was any action taken on this, at least I could not find any. Representative Marcotte might know more about this than I do. Then there was a recommendation for incentives for housing or bonuses. to attract labor to Vermont farms. There were no specific incentives enacted. However, the Appropriations Act did give $30 million to VHCB from ARPA to provide affordable mixed income rental housing and home ownership throughout the state, including housing for farm workers and refugees. So some of that $30 million should be used for farm worker housing.
Michael, just to follow up on that, Champlain Housing is heading that up through VHCB, and they've already started work on some of these projects on farms to increase and make farm labor housing better and more adequate. So I just wanted to report that and add it to this.
There's
Okay.
also a Zoom meeting, I think in next week or the week after, where the Champlain Housing Trust is going to do an update, I think with Dan Baker from UVM, about where it's gone. It was oversubscribed, so there were a lot of people interested in it. So
Okay, should I move on?
Yes.
The task force also recommended that the state explore use of apprenticeship programs to attract individuals to the farming profession and provide them with training and experience. I don't believe there was much, if anything, done on this recommendation in the legislative session. Other task force members may have additional information on this, but I could not find anything on apprenticeship programs for farming. Then there was a recommendation on purchasing, that the task force explore whether state agencies and schools are purchasing Vermont milk for state institutions and schools. There was definitely discussion of this in the agriculture committees, but there was no action, specific action taken on this. But it's definitely a conversation that the ag committees have pretty regularly about how to further incent state agency and school purchasing of Vermont dairy products. You also wanted to look at finding additional processing capacity in the state, not necessarily building it, but finding unused processing capacity. From what I know, I don't think there was any action taken by the General Assembly on this recommendation. Then the next category is business assistance and succession planning. As you know, succession planning is a very important topic these days as the farming community average age increases. The task force recommended additional funds be appropriated to provide dairy farmers with technical services they need for succession and transfer. And you recommended a list of or directory of service providers in the state by region. The legislature went at this recommendation a little bit differently. No additional funds were appropriated, but the Appropriations Act does direct the Agency of Agriculture in consultation with the VHCB to inventory the existing programs available to assist new farmers beginning operation in the state. And then there's going to be a report to the General Assembly in January 2023 on the degree of coordination across these programs. So this should include recommendations for improvement or change in operations and coordinations that could benefit farmer succession and other assistance that farmers need in their operation. And then the last recommendation was to extend the task force's authority for the assessment and recommendations for how to address dairy pricing in the state. And that was done in Acts and Resolves number 162, section 9, as we just discussed. So those were the recommendations of the task force and the action taken by the legislature in the 2021 and 2022 session.
Well, thank you, Michael. Are there questions of Michael in regards to his report on any of the issues? If not, do you have anything, Dane? Well, if not, to start with, I want to thank the committee for electing Dan and I as co-chairs. I think it's a pretty challenging job, but one that I certainly look forward to dealing with, in the issues that we have to deal with in a very positive way. Our agriculture in Vermont, it's even more important today than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago with climate change issues and food shortage issues that we faced during the pandemic. It's so much more important for us we have a pretty good growing season, and we've been dealing with climate changes and water quality issues to stay ahead of that stuff. And we can produce a lot of great food here. And we really, we need all of our farmers. We need the new ones that are coming along, as well as the older families that are been with us for years and transitioning to the younger generations. All those issues are very important to our survival, and there's a good reason why people want to move to Vermont and live here and work online, is because of our climate and our landscape and our safe living places. There's a lot of real positive things that we have to look forward to and make better as we move forward. So, and it's good that our last year's task force members are back with us. You sat through a lot of hours of testimony and hearings, and of course we got to now hear from the professor and the legal people, and it's an opportune time. The way milk pricing is right at the present, I think it's an opportune time for us to be reviewing ways of trying to maintain that price. My phone used to ring not daily, but probably 5 to 10 calls a week on how things were so bad on the farm, and that's slowed down. And basically, it stopped here in the last month because they're being paid a fair price. Of course, everything else on the farm has gone sky high, but when you sell your milk for wholesale price and you buy all your commodities at retail price, there's quite a gap in between there. But anyways, I don't know if Dan had anything to add at this point or not.
I'd like to extend my appreciation to the task force members as well for re-upping Bobby and me for another term here. I think, as Mike has indicated, the task force focus now is more specific to the milk price regulation issue. And we have roughly 6 or 7 months to reach a decision as a group about how to address that issue. We reserved a little bit of time at the end of the meeting to talk about how we'll go forward doing that. And so I think we're pretty much back on time to hear from Diane, and so we can speak to how we'll be going forward to address the price regulation issue after we hear from Diane.
Yeah. If there are no questions, we'll move right on to Diane Osfeld from the Agency of Ag to give us an update on our ag situation here in Vermont, numbers and production and the whole 9 yards. So Diane, welcome, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you all. Thank you for inviting me to speak to your group today. I do have a lot of numbers. Linda, I think, has given me permission to share my screen, but she also states that the presentation I want to make is online for you folks as well. So I think either way you want to look at this, we can go from there. Let's see.
You're on the screen.
Good, that's a start. All right, from the beginning, they say. All right. So glad to be here today. Lots of data to talk about, but the main topics you asked me to cover were Vermont dairy farms, Vermont milk production, cost of production, milk prices, dairy margin coverage program history, dairy margin coverage reimbursement program, which you titled the Dairy Risk Management Assistance Program. So those are the things I'm going to cover. I'm going to add in a few other updates with things that have been happening that either have been in the news or may be of interest to all of you, and glad to take questions at any time. So glad to be interrupted, not a problem at all. So you just let me know if I don't know if somebody's going to manage hand raising on this electronic format or not, but just let me know if you've got a question and I'll stop and do my best to answer it. So we're going to start right in with the number of dairy farms.
Yep.
So this is the recent 2022 data. This is cows only. So dairy cow farms. Through August, we do our count at the first of the month. So we have another count coming up the 1st of September. So here we are through August. By county, these are cow dairies only. So we have seen a decline on the year totals. Started January 563 commercial dairies. Now we're at 541 at the beginning of August. So we have seen a decline, about a 3.9, almost 4% decline in number of dairy farms, 22 dairy farms to date. So over past history, that's not a overwhelming number, really. Most years it's somewhere has been between 20 and 40 farms a year. So 22 as of the beginning of August. So you can see the different counties. There's only one county now that has over 100 commercial dairy farms. So the Orleans and Addison used to be over 100, but have dipped below that now, actually substantially below 100 farms. So that's where we're at right now. And we do an average number. I keep a running average because it's hard to, how do you compare years to years? So when we start comparing the years, we'll start looking at average number of farms, because as you can see, they change month to month. So what number are you going to choose for your comparison? So I run an average number of farms. Here's the data back to 2017, still by county. So 2017, 796 farms on average. And then down to our to-date average of 558 active commercial dairy farms.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Absolutely.
In terms of your screen, would it be possible for you to take the main slide that you're talking about and make that cover the entire screen? We're seeing the main screen as well as a smaller one. It makes it a little more difficult to read the detail when we don't see the screen.
I will give that a try. I am not used to taskbar. No, I don't want that. Any suggestions from those of you who use Teams more often than I do?
Mike's still around. Well, we'll see if Mike Farrent's still here.
Looks like a good choice.
Yeah, that's what I know how to do. Or unblack slideshow. What's that do? Oh, no, that isn't good. That wasn't good. All right. So that's, I don't, if anybody else knows how to, I do not know how. So
well, if we could get there eventually, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Subtitles.
Closer is all.
Yes,
Like,
sit closer.
Go online,
Sorry.
online.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know how to do anything more than what I've got here. So.
Online.
Can you do
Sorry
that?
about that.
You're good.
Yeah.
All right. So this is our 5 years of data 2017 through 2022 to date, the average number of farms. So you can see that change from in 2017, 141 farms in Franklin, 127 in Orleans, and 115 in Addison. So over 100 farms in each of those three categories. And then that declined to under 100 farms for both Addison and Orleans. So certainly some changes there, some changes in some other counties, you know, seeing up in the 60 farms in Rutland, 62 farms in Caledonia, and seeing that decline as well. So it's been pretty well spread out around the counties. We've had no county go to 0 farms, although in Grand Isle we're down to 9 farms. So under no more double digits of the number of farms in Grand Isle. So certainly some changes there.
It's like Bennington too.
And Bennington, yep,
Yeah.
under double digits, yes. And then again, Essex County being very close as well to dropping below double digits. Organic dairies, you asked me to pull this out separately. This is a part of the total. These are not additional to the numbers, they're part of. So this comes from NOFA, Vermont. The agency does not track the data separately. They're dairy farms to us. So NOFA assists us with the number of certified organic dairies in the state. So there's the numbers there, seeing a decline into 2022 to date with the number of Horizon farms that some have chosen to go out, et cetera. So there's also a decline in the organic dairies. And then you asked to look at the ones that are, I think, processing their milk as well as, you know, milking animals. And so we term those on-farm processors, the issue being that we don't separate them out by cow, goat, or sheep. So that does include all of those. As we see, that has continued. It took a little dip there, but pretty steady at 70 so far this year, maintaining that. My screen just made a noise, so I don't know what that's about. But anyhow, yeah. So there we are with the numbers there. So
Diane, does on-farm processors include raw milk sales?
No.
Processing?
Nope. No, raw milk are within the grand total, but not within this.
Okay,
because
thanks.
these would all be folks that are under the pasteurized milk ordinance, and the raw milk farms are not.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Do you have a guesstimate of how many are cow on farm of the total?
The majority are cow, but I can't tell you. I know that we have 6 commercial sheep dairies and 46 commercial goat, but a lot of the goat go into Vermont Creamery, so they're not all processing. They wouldn't all be in this category. So, but I believe the majority are cow.
And I assume then that those aren't included in the commercial, the 541 commercial dairy number. These are
The sheep and goat are not, but these, if they are milking cows, we would inspect them separately from their processing facility. So they would be in the original number that was shared. All right, the milk production. So this is from USDA. They do a monthly on the milk production. So this is 2.728 billion pounds of milk in 2017, 2021, 2.564 billion pounds of milk. So we're down a bit. And then through June 2022, we're at 1.282. So if you multiplied that by 2, since we're 6 months in, you would see that expect that our year would come out somewhere around that 2.56 again, possibly. There's a lot of different impacts on that. The conventional dairy farms have been under a quota since mid-2020 and still are. A supply management program, not specifically a quota, a base excess program, supply management. So is that having the impact? Number of farms going out as well, et cetera. So those are some possible impacts to that milk production. You also asked about trying to do the volume by that. So this is an estimate for sure. NOFA provides us the number of farms. NOFA has a cost of production study that they've done for several years. And so this is a value that they provide in that cost of production study of an average milk production of the farms that are in their study. Once again, USDA doesn't pick it out. The agency doesn't pick it out. Nobody tracks this separately. So this is an estimate of an estimate of an estimate. So that using 199 farms in 2017, 1.294,173 million pounds a year times 199, the estimate of pounds of organic milk for the state of Vermont would be 257 million. So a calculated amount, no one's tracking it. So there's some estimates of what organic milk production is for the state. So it's been right around that 200 million, a little lower because less farms in 2020 and 2021. No 2022 data. NOFA has not published their data yet. Of course, the year isn't over yet either. So I think we're probably going to be in that similar range of 200 million pounds in a year's time in 2022. The same with processors. This one's even harder. So out of those numbers of processors that we spoke about, sorting it out of how many are in each category. So when they register with the agency or license with the agency for processing of milk, they do so in a range of pounds of milk processed per day. So the majority of the on-farm group are in under 500 pounds of milk per day, 500 to 10,000 pounds of milk per day, and 10,000 to 50,000 pounds of milk per day. So reviewing the records and determining where people fall, you get this set of numbers that the under 500 crowd is the largest. And if you want to, if it's a cow dairy, a milking cow making 50 pounds of milk a day, that's 10 cows. So these are very small. It's more, it's probably 5 times that for goats. So you could have 50 goats and get into that under 500 as well. So that those are very small, the under 500 pounds of milk per day. So the same thing, you've got 36 farms that are under 500 using 500 pounds of milk, even if they are under that, no idea what their numbers are, gets an estimate of their milk volume a year. So 6 million, right around 6 million pounds of milk a year, almost 7. Same with the 500 to 10,000, taking an average of those two numbers and using the midpoint. 26 farms doing that. Those are probably all dairy in that size. Their milk volume up in the 40 million, almost 50 million per year. And then the 10 to 50,000, those are the largest group. They've been very steady. They are all cows, as far as I can tell, because that would be a tremendous number of goats. The estimated milk volume is around 65 million and has been very steady. So there's an estimate of the yearly volume of these on farm, but it does include sheep and goats. It's not pulled out. So it's probably greater than is actual because of the goats and the sheep in there versus the cow production.
Diane?
Yep.
Do you track the number of cows being milked in the state? I was just wondering if farms going out, if those base assets were being absorbed into other farms. So essentially we have the same number of cows being milked, even though we have less dairy farms.
No, we do not. The agency does not track cow numbers. USDA does, and it is showing a decline. The last monthly count from USDA for cow dairies was 118,000. And we're down from the last couple of years have been right around the 120. So it's declining a bit in the last year, but I can get you that data.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a very busy slide, even worse, Senator Brock. I know. That's why you have the online version. This is from USDA. This is conventional. Yeah, I know it's small. USDA conventional dairy cost of production. So USDA does this every year. So that's helpful. They do it for Vermont, which is helpful, but it is a survey. It's a survey data collection. So it's as good as what farmers tell USDA. But they do it the same way every year, which is important because if you look up another cost of production, it really depends on what the calculation is. I mentioned NOFA has done a cost of production. None of their categories match up or hardly match up with what's on this sheet. So it's really hard to make any great comparisons of a different, if you calculate it differently, it's still a cost of production. It's still an okay way to calculate it, but then you're looking at apples and green apples and ripe apples. They're kind of the same, but they're not quite the same. So it's really hard to make comparisons. So the big stuff to look at here as that the total gross value of production, the first, just above that first green line. So for conventional dairy, all of their income together per hundredweight, 2336 in 2017, 2148 in 2018, 2397, 2019, 2020, 2289, 2021, 2440. That's all their income together, sale of cattle, any other income that they report. In Vermont, many times maple syrup, any other agricultural activity they're doing can be added in, sale of feed, all those kind of things. I think the next most important thing to look at is the total operating costs, and that coming in 2017 at 1560, 17 for 2018, 1788 for 2019, 1687 for 2020, and 2103 for 2021. So on an operating cost basis, from this data from USDA, okay, the income is greater than the expenses. It's when we get into the allocated overhead, and that's a term from USDA, which includes hired labor, opportunity cost of unpaid labor, so family labor, capital recovery of machinery and equipment, opportunity cost of land, taxes and insurance, general farm overhead, and then that total, once you add that in, which are quite substantial numbers, the total cost listed is in each case greater than the farm income.
What is the difference, Diane? Because I can't read your numbers very well.
Yep. The total, so the difference between in 2017, the income versus all the costs listed is a negative $6.15 a hundredweight. 2018, a negative $9.77. 2019, a negative $8.51. In 2020, a negative $8.68. And 2021, a negative $12.41. So the ability to meet your operating cost, possible. The ability to reinvest or pay labor or pay yourself a wage as the owner, invest in equipment, manage the other overhead of the farm gets tougher and tougher. So many farms are putting off a lot of deferred maintenance, and then it does start to catch up to them when equipment can't be repaired any further, or the barn falls in, or some of these things occur. It gets harder and harder because of the inability to manage all the allocated overhead. Okay. And I did pull out some very specific things you asked about on the next slide, much bigger print. You asked about labor, feed, fuel, capital. You did ask about capital costs. USDA doesn't list this out on capital cost as in infrastructure or buildings, but they do on equipment. So there's the same up top, the income, and then the operating costs that you wish to pull out. Feed is absolutely the biggest operating cost. In 2017, 1148, up to 1664 in 2021 per hundredweight. So it's the biggest portion of their cost of production. You wanted to know about fuel. Fuel, it's a combined fuel, lubrication, and the electricity. So it's a combined category. It's gone up and down a little, but kind of flat around the high point of $1.22 a hundredweight and the low point of $1.03 a hundredweight. So a bit of a range in there, but not a continued climb. Hired labor certainly has increased, as you can see there, starting at $2.51 per hundredweight in 2017 and up to $3.03 in 2021 per hundredweight of milk. And unpaid labor, same, bounced around a little bit, but certainly a high of $4.78 in 2021. Capital recovery of machinery and equipment has also gone up from $5.53 in 2017 to $6.61 in 2021.
Diane?
Yep.
Try going to PowerPoint and go to view and then choose reading view and see if that will.
So back to my own presentation.
Yes, just go to view at the top choices.
Yep.
And then open reading view.
Okay.
And see if that we'll keep it just to the one screen, to the one page. You've got 2 pages on there at a time.
All right, how we doing?
No
No.
different.
Mhm.
Moved it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops, come on now. Yeah, not getting any better, is it? Hold, I'm gonna stop my sharing for a minute. Sorry about that, folks.
That's how it works on my PowerPoint. We could have different versions, sorry.
Yep, that's okay. Well, now I can't get it to go to even a slideshow anymore. I think it got worse instead of better. Oh, she's churning. Don't know what's going on here, but it's not a happy. All right, hold on a minute. Sorry, technical difficulties. This happened earlier today when I was reviewing it. It's got stuck somewhere. Hold on.
Both places. I've got, same thing.
You're on the screen too,
You're
all
on the
by
screen,
yourself.
too. Well, perhaps it would be useful if you could forward us a copy of the presentation or forward it to Linda.
Linda already has it.
Is it?
It's on
All
the
right.
webpage,
All right.
under your documents.
Okay, good.
So any one of you can look at that now.
That might be
You go
big
to.
enough.
All right, that could be bigger.
Committee. On the webpage, you go to committee, then other committees, and then task force for the dairy. And under documents for today's date is this slideshow.
Yeah, I can't seem to get it to not have.
Diane, do you want me
Not
to
have
run it from here?
Yeah, if you want to, Linda, if you, that's fine with me. And we're on slide 11. That's fine with me.
If I can do that. Hang on.
So based on your last slide, Diane, even though the farmers are getting paid significantly more than they have in the past couple of years, the margins are still pretty bad.
Yeah, they are difficult. You know, I think meeting operating cost is one thing, but the ability to reinvest is hard. So they're certainly, with a little stronger milk price, we'll talk about 2022. There's certainly a couple things that are really high in cost for conventional farms and organic farms in 2022 that are pinching. Y'all have seen fuel prices at the gas station, your own gas price, but then what is happening? Thank you, Linda. What's happening with diesel? Diesel's been huge and every farm uses a lot of diesel. Whoop, back one more. Back one more. One more, Linda. That's it. All right. Thank you. Yay. Thank you, Linda. All right. So that is, there's some data of things that are expensive in 2022. Fertilizer. So the little graph, DTN is a industry group. So not USDA data, not, you know, so it's an industry group, but urea prices, urea is the basis for most fertilizer. And as you can see, the dotted line is the 5-year average. 2020 was the blue purpley line. 2021 is the green line, and it just went up and up and up at the end of 2021 and has stayed really high, the red line, in 2022. So farmers who purchase fertilizer, that was a tremendous cost this spring. Some people may have tried to lock it in last fall, but still it was high. And that's the basis for many of your fertilizers. So extremely high cost there. And then the other thing is diesel fuel, as I mentioned. This is from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, so it is a federal administration. So this is the New England price, could not find a Vermont price specifically. Number 2 diesel retail, so not delivered to the farm, but gives an idea of that increase.
Which air conditioner?
So you got starting at $2.69 in 2017 per gallon, and through July 2022, 5.18 per gallon. And diesel is huge for all farms, organic as well as conventional, just the ability to get those tractors going, harvesting, planting, harvesting, some pretty high costs for 2022.
And from the previous USDA numbers on cost, is there any way to project what these increases reflect per hundredweight?
No, I don't have that skill. It's going to be higher. That's I can give you that much, but I can't tell you the impact. Linda, I'm ready for the next slide. All right, so the organic, as I mentioned, NOFA Vermont has an organic cost of production study, and I'd encourage you to have them in to talk about it. I tried to do some comparisons to the USDA, and there are just not enough line items that are similar. So these are the things that were similar, not named the same, but fairly similar. So milk price for organic, their study, and they don't have their data 100% ready for 2021. So it is a slow process for them. 36.90, 2017, 33.80, 2018, 34.35, 2019, and 33.85, 2020. So they've seen a decline in price, but it seems to have leveled off a bit. Cash income, same or similar to the USDA, where the sale of cattle and calves and any other income on the farm. So, you know, they're up around the 36, 37. They were, of course, the highest in 2017. And then they do total cash expenses. There's not a lot on or consistency on anything that's capital or others. So that's, I know it's not very helpful, but this is what you can basically compare, because the rest is so, it's not calculated the same way, and it just doesn't mesh. So total cash expenses for these organic dairies in the NOFA study, they are all lower than the total cash income. So there is a margin there, but it really just doesn't even talk about capital and et cetera. So it's just not an easy comparison, but there are some numbers for you. The other thing for the organic world, Linda, next slide, please. The other thing that's occurring in the organic folks are also, the diesel price is concerning, but the other price for them right now is feed. And we are working right now regionally with the Organic Trade Association, Stonyfield, Organic Valley. We're trying to get USDA to look at the cost of soybean meal and that huge increase. As you can see, the soybean meal is the one in the center, and that is the cost as put forth by USDA. So those are their own numbers, that going from $800, $850 per ton, and then through July of 2022, 1,582 per ton. So almost double. So that's a huge cost.
Someone needs to mute their camera.
All right, so so you're seeing also a little bit of a rise in the corn meal. That's from the Morrison Feed Company in Vermont. USDA did not have enough data to make any comparisons there, but it's also USDA data on the hay. A lot of farmers grow their own hay in Vermont, but we needed something for comparison to see that those prices have gone up as well. So the main issue around the soybean meal that we're getting back reports on, it's a trade. The United States does not grow enough soybean meal for its livestock, organic soybean meal, soybeans, organic soybeans that are going to animal feed. So the ones that are grown, they go into human food, the majority. So all of this, the organic soybean meal, the majority of it's imported, and it came from the continent of India. And there's some kind of trade issues going on with India that they stopped importing soybean meal, and the price has skyrocketed. And this is impacting the organic dairies. Senator Starr, you're not hearing from farmers, but boy, are we hearing from the organic dairy farmers right now that this grain is tremendous and really just pushing them very hard to be able to maintain and be in business. Their price has been flat for the last few years, as we noticed in the other slide, but this increased grain cost is tremendous on top of the fuel cost has been really difficult for them. So we're having the conversation, trying to get USDA's attention because it's no fault of the farmer. It's a trade issue with India. And so, you know, can there be any relief? The part of this that may work is that this is for an issue for poultry, swine, organic as well. And their rations are much more heavy on the protein soybean meal than the dairy farmers are. So there may be traction there. Linda?
There's some other kind of, I'm sorry, Diane, is there some other kind of feed that they're looking at that can take the place of the soybean, or is there nothing out there?
There's been a lot of shuffling, but no, not easily.
Thanks.
One back, Linda. I think we did a double tap. Okay, so Horizon, we'll give you an update. I'm going to give you an update on this because it occurred a year ago and we've been working through this. So a year ago in August, Horizon Organic said they were going to drop farms across the Northeast, and that impacted 28 farms here in Vermont. Horizon did extend that contract through February 2023. But Secretary Tebbett started a task force very quickly thereafter. I think our first meeting was either late August or early September. So within this time frame, the past year, 8 of those organic dairies chose to cease operations. Some of them were older and just they stopped. So 8 ceased operations between 2021 and 2022. 11 of the farms have secured a market with Organic Valley. 7 of the farms have secured a market with Stonyfield. 1 farm is choosing to return to the conventional market, and 1 farm we're still working to secure a market. They had some needed structural changes to meet the requirements of the market. So we're still working on that. And it's a little bit of a uphill climb of willingness to make those changes. So we're working on that one. The other, next slide. So Horizon did promise some things. There was a recent article in the Digger that says they may not be meeting those promises, but here's what they promised. They would extend the contract through February 2023. They would provide financial support of $2 per hundredweight for the last 6 months of milk production. So when a farmer leaves Horizon, so as I said, 11 farms are going to Organic Valley. When they leave and go to Organic Valley, 6 months back, their milk production, Horizon will pay them $2 per hundredweight on that milk production. The same for the 8 farms that ceased milking. They can get this same money on the last 6 months of their milk production, no matter when they stopped, as long as it was after Horizon provided the notice. And they also said they would provide financial planning services for farmers for free. They stated they were willing to co-invest in infrastructure, hauling, processing, and would work with regional stakeholders to explore the co-investment. So the article in the Digger talked about concerns around all of these promises. We did hear from farms around the $2 per hundredweight issue. We did contact Horizon, asked where it was, what was happening. It was being paid, it was slow, and it also went through the cooperatives that the farmer used to sell milk through. So it wasn't a direct check from Horizon to a farmer. They put it back through, and in Vermont, that would have been Agrimart, National Farmers Organization, NFO, and DFA. And so if it was a part of the milk check, maybe it didn't stand out. I don't know if they did a line item or not, but farmers felt they hadn't received it. But Horizon Organic states that they did pay it, and that's how they paid it. Individual farms that requested help from the agency in follow-up that yes, they did receive the money. So it did occur. So we'll keep monitoring that and assisting farmers by giving Horizon a strong prod when they need it. The financial planning services, we have Vermont Farm and Forest Viability, and all of the farms within this 28 were visited by Farm Viability, and some asked for more help than others. And that help is still occurring, especially that last farm that's a little recalcitrant of wanting to change. They're working closely with them to assist them. The USDA provided $19 million more for the Dairy Business Innovation Center. And a lot of that was based on the organic plan that the Northeast put in. So it has to be broader than just organic farmers, but they're certainly dairy farmers, but they're certainly involved. So we'll talk about what that is, but it is probably the right time now that those plans are coming together. get back in touch with our friends at Horizon and say, okay, how are you going to co-invest? But that, as far as I know, there's been no further information on how they would co-invest. Linda?
Diane, I have a question.
Yes.
So we're kind of rolling our eyes here at that $2 going back through the milk checks to the co-ops, because that means all the deducts are taken out before the farmers get it, which means that's why they might not have seen it. I mean, I don't think it would be a direct pay. I just, that would be an interesting thing to find out from the 3 co-ops if all the deducts were taken, because that would affect the farmers more drastically than if it was just a straight $2 payment.
Yeah, I don't know how they were doing it. So yes, that would be a good question for the co-ops. I do not know how that was represented or how it was managed. Was it a line item before deducts or after deducts? I do not know.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, next slide.
Is that something that the dairy division will look into at the agency?
I would encourage you to talk to the dairy co-ops. I mean,
Us or
you guys, because it's a financial transaction that we usually don't have the ability to dig into. Proprietary. You have more powers than we do.
Diane?
Mhm.
So going forward from February, what is it, February 2023, will Horizon completely be out of New England?
Yes.
Okay.
They didn't really have many farms in southern New England, but Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, yes, they will be done.
But they're still selling their products in New England, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right, Linda, next slide. All right, so yes, we do have some funding out there. The new buyers are being patient. The farmers coming in had to have a plan of what they needed to change, but they did not have to have it 100% completed, except for that last farm where it was felt that they did not even come close to meeting what the buyers required. So there's work to do for sure. So the other farms had, certain things to take care of, and they were given time. They had to write up a plan of how they were going to do it. The buyers also knew that money was coming. So that helped their patience level as well. So the Dairy Business Innovation Center has announced 2 programs: on-farm milk handling grant, which would hit some of that bulk tank and chart recorders and other issues around the farm area that they needed to fix, and then a dairy farm innovation grant, which was a little broader and, can fit in some other things that are needed. Many of the buyers want changes to stalls. So the headlock aspect of a stanchion that closes around the animal's neck, those are being required to be phased out by the organic buyers. And so that takes some work internally in the barn to make those fixes. So that second innovation grant category is broader and you can fit some of those things in. The one thing that USDA Dairy Innovation Center grants will not cover is the carpenter to do that construction type work, or the backhoe to do the digging, or those kind of things. So we do thank you, the legislature, for $200,000 to help, but you were very specific that it was for really to access a new market. So it's pretty much the 20 farms that are left for that $200,000. So we'll do a maximum of $15,000, but that could be used to match a dairy innovation grant. They could buy the bulk tank with their dairy innovation grant and utilize them funds from the legislature to pay the carpenter to pull the wall apart and get the tank in there and, close the wall back up type of thing, plumbing, whatever else might be needed. So that will work quite well. The last program that's out there right now is the USDA Organic Certification Cost Share, and that's up to 50% of the certification costs for farmers for crops, livestock, wild crops, and handling. So that's out there right now as well.
What is a wild crop? Pasture?
Yeah, could be, or it's broader than just dairy. And so it could be ginseng, mushrooms, those types of things. Could be.
Thanks.
Yep.
So there should be plenty of money to help the organic farmers to to meet their requirements, right?
Yes. But they need to be, and that's where farm viability comes in to assist them. They do need to apply. This isn't magic. If they don't apply, they won't get anything. So that's the push from farm viability, is to help them, you know, get estimates, get a grant. We're not making them difficult grant write-ups, but still it has to be done. So sitting back and hoping somebody drops some money on them isn't going to happen. They have to apply. So we're working hard with farm viability to assist farmers to understand that, and as much as possible to help them through the process. Next one, Linda. All right, milk prices, everybody's favorite. Okay, so you asked about prices, and you asked about 3 different types of prices. So the statistical uniform price comes from the Federal Milk Marketing Order, and Middlebury location is the pretty much central to Vermont. So that is the price utilized for the first row: 2017, 1678, 2018, 1544, 2019, 1746, 2020, 1645, 2021, 1723, and through July 2465. So yes, a substantial difference in 2020 at this point. The all milk price for USDA Dairy Margin Coverage Program, they calculate a national all milk price. And so 17 and 18 were the old dairy margin. The dairy, it was a different name, a different program. Calculated it the same way though, but I did go back and collect those numbers. But the Dairy Margin Coverage Program that we're working on right now is 2019, 2020, and 2021, and 2022. So there's the all milk price. That's national, not just Vermont, but national. You can see there's a difference of about almost $1, a little less than $1 most years on that. And so far, the all milk price nationally is through in 2022 is $26.02. So almost getting closer to $2 higher. The mailbox price for the New England states, they do not separate out Vermont. That comes from the Federal Milk Marketing Order. That includes any premiums on the milk, and it includes the cost of dues and hauling. So they do talk about the calculation, and I can get you that information, but here's what they have for all of New England. So higher than the Vermont price at Middlebury, usually $1-ish, maybe $1 more than $1 across the board. And so far through July, $25.68. The mailbox price though was only through May. They have not calculated the price for the other months yet.
So have you, you do store checks, I believe, on milk, your dairy division. Don't you do store checks on milk pricing and retail pricing?
No, we discontinued that quite a few years ago. We do not gather prices on retail. The Federal Milk Marketing Order does for certain locations, but I think maybe Burlington in Vermont, but I could go back and find that data, but we no longer collect those.
Because, I go to the store occasionally with my wife, and I usually go to the dairy case. And you're taking 2020 last year, in 2021, milk was a gallon was up in north was usually around $4.79 a gallon. And now it's just a hair over $5 a gallon. And yet the price, there's $7 difference in the price of milk, what's being paid. But yet, the price accordingly hasn't gone up that bad in the stores. So I wonder where that money's coming from. Because, we were told that, they're having a hard time paying the farmers, even the $18, or that was all they could do. There was no premiums to speak of. And now it's $25.50. So, there's quite a difference of the cost of doing business or something there. Do you guys ever check that kind of stuff, Diane? Or dare?
As why the price goes the direction it goes? Or like at this level, no, we're not. The issue being that, and Representative Marcotte's on here, and he owns a store, that when it comes in the door, stores can they can increase the margin if they choose or not, or lower it if they choose. So what happens at retail, so all of the price, the first row of prices here from the federal milk marketing order are minimum prices. And once a finished product gets to a store, there is no regulation on what the store charges for that. They can do whatever they want, truthfully. I mean, yes, they have to be competitive with other stores, but there is nothing that Diane could say to Representative Marcotte that you only can charge 5% more or 10% more for your margin. There's nothing regulatory on that. I couldn't tell Representative Marcotte to do that in his store. He can do whatever he wants. There's no regulation.
I would hope that would be the way.
So in Maine, they do have wholesale and retail price oversight. So we can at least get their data and see whether that's analogous to Vermont. It's not a question, but at least there is that set of data. Diane, do you know the Boston market administrator used to survey retail milk prices back in the day? Do you know if that was continued when the orders were consolidated?
I believe there is retail data there, and there is an organic retail data, but I don't know that it's granular enough to get down to just Vermont.
And then I sort of an associated question. I expect that the base excess plan cost out is probably not included in the mailbox price at this point, but has anybody tried to think about how that might factor in?
I agree with you that it's probably not in the mailbox price. I'd have to go back and look at the list of things that they stated were calculated in there.
Yeah.
It depends, yes, it could be, depending on what's happening on your farm, or if you're choosing to stay at your base, then there is no impact. Yeah. So it's a tough one to determine.
Yeah.
I think that's another potential. I don't know if they would tell you, but how those base excess programs are working and how much they've collected of over base dollars versus, I don't know, they might tell you, they might not.
And the other piece in the mailbox price with the Department of Financial Regulation report, we kind of teased out that the New England mailbox price seems to be higher than expected than the New York mailbox price. And the thinking is the organic price is overrepresented in the New England mailbox price. So just a consideration to keep in mind when looking at the New England mailbox price.
It's overrepresented?
Yeah.
Higher percentage of organic dairies versus the New York State.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've had several calls on is that it's next to impossible for the farmer that keeps sending his base excess plan. They send the extra milk along with their regular milk, but there's no clear way of understanding how much they're getting paid for that base excess milk that they're shipping to the milk handler. And, I would think that there should be some accountability for that base excess milk to be accounted for and the price of it. Because especially the big guys are they're shipping this milk along some of them. But yet they don't know how much they're getting for it or hardly no reporting.
So it's all just going into one milk check and it's the price they get is the combination then, or the average.
That's what I've been told by some of them.
Co-op too.
So do you guys check on that, Diane, or is there?
That's considered proprietary information. And no, we don't get that information, nor do we have any grounds to ask for it.
Well,
The farmer should be able to ask for it and get it. You
Yeah.
think?
Yes.
they can
Yes,
ask.
I know.
Thank you, Diane.
Sure.
Diane, I just one more quick question here. Where does the cost obligation for the farmers as far as shipping or trucking go, and how does that work into the mailbox price? Because I assume the trucking your milk from the farm to the processing plant has gone up because that's a diesel input too.
Yeah, that is part of the calculation in the mailbox price, but it would, it would be a larger deduct. But that is all the pluses and all the minuses in the mailbox price.
Okay, so it's in there.
Yes. All right, next slide, Linda. Predictions from Agrimark. These were from August 24th, so pretty fresh for next same Middlebury location for next year. So lower average coming out at 20.54, and we were just talking about a $24 through of June or July of this year. So the expectation will be lower, and that could be up as much as $4 to $5 a hundredweight lower. So this will be tougher. Mike O'Grady spoke about, do your work now because the prices are good, but predictions are, yeah, they'll still be good compared to the 5-year average, but not great. So keeping an eye on that as well. And I would say work expeditiously because these are predictions and they may not hold. They may go lower.
So this is even with the continued base excess programs.
Correct.
Agrimark.
Yeah. Next slide, Linda. Okay, so this is the time to switch gears into dairy margin coverage program. Or do you want to, I know you had a break in your agenda, but you haven't had one yet. So I'm game if you are, but I will leave that up to you.
Yeah, we could take, well, we got it listed down at about 15 minutes.
Okay,
That work for you, Diane?
sure. But I can talk all day, as you've noticed.
We may test you one these days.
We've been counting on it. That's the agenda.
You are the agenda.
Lucky
Yeah,
me.
we'll take a 15-minute break, so we'll come back about 10 of.